All right, guys. Again, thank you all for coming. This is Mr. Zawacki, and today what we're going to be talking about is what to expect on your upcoming DBA, specifically for Module 6 for Biology, Module 5 for Anatomy. This is just a review. Most of you guys have already had a DBA with me, but just in case, it's just an oral exam where you and I speak over the phone or in person, most of the time over the phone. It includes about 5 or 6 questions that covers main topics from the module. You're allowed to use your notes. However, your answers should still be in your own words. And depending on the DBA, Module 6 for Biology, it's 30 points. For Module 5 for Anatomy, it's 35 points. When finished, and if you pass it, you'll just go to the assessment area and type in the comments box, the date, time, and 3 to 5 sentences about what we talked about. And then the password for the module test will be given to you by me once the DBA is passed. This is not new. We've already had DBAs before, so hopefully you all understand the same concept behind it. Now, specifically with biology, this was in lesson 601. With 601, you learned about classification. And there are 2 main ways to classify organisms. There's either the Linnaean taxonomy chart, which you see right here. This one goes kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Remember the mnemonics we learned? Kings play chess on fat green stools, or some other things that you guys have learned as well. Either way, you need to know the order. You also need to know that kingdom is the most general, so that includes very many animals, whereas species is the most specific. And they name each animal based off of their genus, followed by their species, like us for Homo sapiens, or for this wolf, Canis lupus. The Linnaean system, though, does have limitations. It does not account for DNA because they didn't know about DNA when they made this classification system. The technology didn't exist. But it is based on physical similarities. This is a big part. The Linnaean taxonomy chart is based off of physical similarities. So what that means is they organize everything based on how they look. Just like you see here with a wolf and a type of dog and maybe a coyote and a fox and some other wild dog. These are all grouped in the same category because they look the same. The other form of classification is cladistics, or making the cladogram. This is based off of evolution or common ancestry. Phylogeny is the name of the evolutionary history for a group of species, so that's like the study of it. And it's shown in branching tree diagrams. So looking here, your common ancestor will always be at the base of the branching tree diagram. Common ancestor is what all of these species have in common. A came first on the timeline of life and fossil records, B came second, C came third, and D was the newest evolutionary species. And then you have different derived traits that separate those species in 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the main thing you guys need to know, Linnaean taxonomy chart organizes everything based on physical similarities. Cladograms use evolution to organize their animals. Both are correct, but they're just 2 different ways to do it. Here are some more terminologies with cladograms. Remember, nodes represent the most recent common ancestor. So you have a common ancestor here, and here, and here, and here, and here. The derived characters are the things that separate out the new species, that you see all these explanations here. And then the clades are the group of organisms that branch out, as you can see here. The oldest clade, at least evolutionarily, on this one would be number 1. The most recent evolutionary clade is number 5, or whatever is furthest to the right. So again, physical similarities is your Linnaean taxonomy chart. Cladogram organizes things based off of evolution. Okay, and one more thing about classification, like we said, it's always a work in progress. You know, in 1866, there were only 2 kingdoms, plants and animals. But we know today, you know, after many new discoveries and new evidence, which that's what science is all about, when you get new evidence and new discoveries, you learn and change things about science. And today, we have 6 kingdoms of life. Archaea is first, because I think that's the oldest, then bacteria, then protists, then fungus, then plants, then animals. Those are your 6 kingdoms of life. There are only 6. So those are the 6 kingdoms that separate everything for classification of all animals. All right, 602, so that was 601, the stuff you guys need to know. This is 602 about bacteria. You guys do need to know that bacteria can evolve. You definitely need to explain that during the DBA. How does it evolve? Well, this picture shows it, but let's go over it. A bunch of bacteria, including a resistant variety. So you have normal bacteria, which is your purple discs, and you have a resistant bacteria that maybe came about from a mutation or maybe through natural selection. I don't know. But we have a resistant bacteria. Now somebody takes an antibiotic and it kills off almost all of the bacteria. It kills them all off except for the resistant one and maybe one other newly resistant bacteria. Then the resistant bacteria multiply and become more common. So that orange resistant bacteria makes more and more. Eventually, the entire infection evolves into a resistant strain. That's not good. You would have to take more and stronger antibiotics in order to kill off the resistant strain, which may not be bad. It's not going to be a good thing for you at all. Now, a question for you guys. What is one thing that could cause bacteria to evolve? What's something that you can do wrong that causes bacteria, harmful bacteria, to evolve? What do you think? Okay. So yeah, speaking on the antibiotics part, good job, Noah. If you take too much of the antibiotic, that gives the bacteria a chance to evolve. If you use the medication wrong, like you don't listen to your doctor and you stop the antibiotic too early or too late, that's not good either. So it really comes down to your mistake of not taking the antibiotic exactly how you're supposed to. If you don't take it exactly how you're supposed to, this slide can happen. You can make resistant bacteria that could harm you. So always take medication correctly. Okay, 604 was about fungus. You need to know some benefits, at least 2, to be able to tell me about. And this is from 604. So some benefits of fungi, they are decomposers. That's good, right? They recycle nutrients. They can also be used for medical reasons. They can be extracted to make penicillin. They can be used for blood pressure medication. They can be used for clotting or excessive bleeding. They can treat migraines. They can promote contractions during childbirth. I mean, fungus can do a lot of different things medicinally. So definitely medical use, definitely decomposers, but also food. We can eat mushrooms or use yeast to make bread or eat truffles. That's all food sources of a fungus. And they're also bioremediation. This kind of goes with decomposers, but they clean the environment of pollutants as well. Okay, so just make sure you know the benefits of fungi, decomposers, medicine, food, and bioremediation. All right, so I got a question that says, is antibiotic meant to kill off enough and leave enough for your body to fight? No, the antibiotic is actually supposed to wipe out the entire the harmful bacterial species. They have it designed to kill off a very certain bacteria and get rid of that completely. When that doesn't happen, it's usually because you don't take the medication correctly. All right, and then in 605, you learned about your plant groups. And there are 4 types of plants on Earth, that's it. There's either mosses, ferns, gymnosperms, which are like your pine trees, or angiosperms, which are anything that have flowers or fruit. Every single plant on Earth is one of those 4 types of plants. But you also need to know their adaptations. You need to know some parts of those plants and why they have them. For example, a cuticle. A cuticle is a waxy coating on a leaf that helps protect it from losing water. All of the species of plants have those. You also have vascular tissue. Those are the tubes inside of trees that plants have in order to grow tall. Mosses don't have them, but the other 3 do: ferns, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. They have those tubes that carry water and nutrients. You also need to know flowers and fruits. Those are reproductive tactics, right? Flower is used to reproduce. Fruit is where the seeds come from to make more plants. You also need to know pollen grains and seeds. Those are also reproductive methods. Those are also adaptations as well. So bottom line, know your 4 types of plants: mosses, ferns, gymnosperms, and angiosperms, but know some of the adaptations that go with them, like vascular tissue, cuticle, pollen, flower, fruit, even stomata, little holes in the leaf that help out with gas exchange. So just be able to talk about some adaptations from 605 as well. Okay, so moving on from plants and their adaptations, which you guys need to know about, you also need to know in 607 how flowers reproduce. Very easy. Very, very simple, especially if you were here last week. The stamen is the male part of the flower. So here's your male symbol. Stamen is the male part of the flower. It contains the anther and the filament and the pollen, which is the cell. The female part is the pistil or carpel, and the female part of the flower contains the stigma, style, and ovary. So stamen is anther filament, pistil is stigma, style, and ovary. When a flower reproduces, it can reproduce by itself, which is asexual reproduction, or it can reproduce with 2 different flowers, sexual reproduction. It's very simple how it happens. The pollen from the anther will travel and make its way to the stigma of the flower, the same flower or a different flower, it does not matter. Then the pollen will go into the style, and then the pollen will fertilize this ovary right here. What is that called? What's the product of a pollen plus ovary? When you get pollen and ovary together, fertilization occurs, but what does that create? Great job, Cameron, Harris, Noah. Yeah, that'll create a seed or a fruit containing seeds, which is the very beginning of that new plant. That's how a flower reproduces. Pollen plus ovary will create fertilization and a seed. or fruit containing seeds. And then the last lesson in animals, you learned about 608. You need to know some things that all animals have in common. They have 6 major characteristics in common. They all are part of the kingdom Animalia. That's kind of common sense. They all are heterotrophic, which means they all have a mouth in order to eat, so they're all consumers. They're all multicellular, made up of more than one cell. All animals are eukaryotic-celled organisms. Remember, bacteria is prokaryotic, but all animals are eukaryotic. No animals have a cell wall in their cells. All animals have the ability to move, though. So these are your main characteristics of animals as well. So that marks the end for the biology portion. Again, just very quickly, know similarities with animals. Know how a flower reproduces along with the male and female parts of the flower. Know from 605 the different plant adaptations like flowers, fruits, pollen, vascular tissue, cuticle, stomata. Be able to talk about them. Know benefits of a fungus. Remember, they're decomposers. They can be used for medical reasons or food or to clean up the environment. Know that bacteria can evolve because of antibiotics. If you don't take them correctly, you give the bacteria a chance to evolve, which would not be good, and you'd have to take a stronger antibiotic to kill it off. And know about classification. Remember, cladogram is evolution, and the Linnaean taxonomy chart is physical similarities. So that's it for the biology portion. I know I have one student in here for the anatomy module 5 DBA, so make sure you are able to explain these 5 questions as well. What happens with the lungs, ribs, and diaphragm when you inhale and exhale. Know about the 2 neurotransmitters or hormones that help. Remember the acetylcholine and adrenaline. So know about those. Remember the 4 macromolecules. My biology students should also know this. Remember they are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids. So know what they are, know their building blocks and what they're made up of. Specifically nucleic acids, know what they're made up of and know what they do. And then tell me about, from the last lesson, from 504, how an enzyme lowers the activation energy. And then if you're in honors, just know the 4 layers of the GI tract and be able to speak about that too. So I'll leave this up for you, Ryder, who's also for anatomy. But that's it for everybody else. And as long as you came in on time and I got your attendance, you guys are all set then to go ahead. And we will talk to you guys next week where we start Module 7 about the human body and different things about that. So thank you guys again for coming. If you have any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, we will talk to you next time.